Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Karen Swainson for this episode. I know Karen and all of the work that you do, and I hope that we can actually get through all of that on this episode. But for those that are listening and don't know you, would you be able to please introduce yourself?
Kia ora. Yep, I'm Karen, and you'll soon pick up that I'm actually English originally. I've been in New Zealand for 14 years now, but yep, had a fantastic childhood growing up mostly in the Peak District National Park in England. Had some great times. Music was a really important part of my childhood. I played the flute in lots of local wind bands, and we travelled all over Europe doing competitions, which was great. Yeah, no, my parents instilled in me like hard work and a real strong sense of justice, which my kids seem to have taken on as well, because if things aren't fair, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And a real love of our amazing planet. Like, you know, I was brought up on a diet of David Attenborough and lots of fantastic other shows that really sort of instilled a curiosity and a love for the planet that we've got. So. And also just, you know, making life fun. So, after university, I did some fantastic travel and saw more of our amazing world and feel really lucky to have had the privilege to do that. Did a good stint of proper corporate work in London. And then, 15 years ago, made the leap to move on down to New Zealand. So, yeah, we came for a year and we're still here.
That happens to a lot of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why would you leave, really? You know, you look out the window and, you know, I love the outdoors. So New Zealand is fantastic for me. I really feel like this is where I belong. You know, I love kayaking and hiking and mountain biking, and there's just so much of all that here. And I just also love the fact that there aren't as many people, which is really terrible because I love people, but I just, when I go to other places in the world now, it just feels so crowded. And that's something that is really special about New Zealand, I think.
Yes, I actually I have the same. Before I came to New Zealand, and after having lived mainly most of my life in big cities with lots of people, I lived for a few years in the middle of a mountain and in a community of 27 people. So after that, I was like, I can't go back to the millions of people on the street. Yeah. I need to go somewhere that there's not that many people, but there's still enough. Well, Auckland has been good.
I think that's the beauty of Auckland. I mean, I live just outside Auckland. I live in Langholm in the Waitakere Ranges, and I just love that in half an hour I can be in the middle of a cosmopolitan city that's so diverse and vibrant, and yet I live in the bush. I mean, you can't ask for more than that, can you?
No, and as well, like through this year with COVID and everything that has happened, I think we are blessed with being one of the places around the world that has dealt as good as possible, and we have been able to actually do a lot of things that in a lot of places around the world people are not able to. So I definitely feel blessed about it. And I'm interested, Karen, if you can share a little bit more with this that you said, that from your growing up with watching David Attenborough and connecting and actually connecting with the world, connecting with the planet and its beauty and its places. Is that what led you later on now with your work to focus a lot on things that I think that it's for the planet and for the benefit?
I think that was probably the foundations, yes. And you know, that wonderful travel that I did, you know, seeing countries, like I did some volunteering in Guatemala before we came to New Zealand, and you know, you feel so privileged in the life that you lead, but yeah, also seeing the degradation that was happening around the world as well. So when we came to New Zealand, I took a departure from the corporate world, and I actually started my own photography business. I had a real desire to run my own business. I just love that challenge of a small startup. And, you know, photography was a passion. And that was great, but I really felt there was something missing. And it was probably about 10 years ago, I did a workshop called Awakening the Dreamer, which is run by the Pachamama Alliance. And that was really the catalyst for the change that I needed. It was something I was looking for, but it was just a bit of an aha moment. The course sort of takes you within 2.5 hours. It's quite incredible. It takes you to the depths of despair of the state that the planet's in. But by the end, you're just so optimistic, and you're basically dancing down the street with all the possibilities and opportunities that there are out there. And I was like, yes. So following that was when things started to change. And the first thing I got involved with was Ubi, which is a little local food organization, and helped set that up back 10 years ago. And it's still running now, which is fantastic. And I'm still vaguely involved. But yeah, Ubi stands for out of our own backyard. So it's all about supporting local growers and making sure that they get a fair price.
Yes, that's so wonderful. Yeah, I've seen Ubi since I came to New Zealand, and I think that as a concept, I think that it's so good because it's helping the local growers and also getting people to buy local and to be able to support local, which has been something this year that has been big.
Absolutely, yeah. They're one of the businesses that have seen some growth this year. Let's say, food boxes have been very popular. Yeah, and I'm actually waiting for mine to arrive today. I really recommend it. It's great.
Cool. Yes, definitely. And I'm interested. Can you share a little bit more, because now you're involved with Pachamama Alliance, right?
I am.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the Pachamama Alliance does, and taking this into the conversation of talking about climate change?
Yeah, so the mission behind the Pachamama Alliance is to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, socially just, and spiritually fulfilling world. And that ticks all the boxes in my mind. Who wouldn't want all those things? So it's actually a partnership between the Aotearoa people in the Amazon jungle and some climate activists originally from California. The organization is run out of San Francisco now, and they developed these amazing courses, which are then shared around the world. So you can do the courses online, obviously. These days, everything happens online. And a couple of years ago, I did one of their workshops, which is an introduction to Drawdown, and I did that over Zoom before Zoom was, you know, something we all did every day. And I was just so inspired by it and thought I would love to bring this to New Zealand. But I got waylaid and distracted by some other projects. But about a year ago, I saw that somebody called Sunshine was running one of these introduction to Drawdown courses in Auckland. And I was like, oh my goodness, someone else is doing it, fantastic. So I reached out to her, and we basically are now co-running these workshops with another great group of people. And so there's the introduction to Drawdown, and then following that, there's like a more in-depth 5-workshop series that you can do called Getting into Action, which really helps you sort of move from thinking about it to actually doing something, which is where a lot of people struggle.
Yes, definitely. And that's one of the things of why with conscious action, we decided to focus on both the consciousness part and the action part, because it is that for a lot of people, a lot of us, we don't know, and we cannot act on what we don't know. But once we know, a lot of us don't know how to put it into action. And
absolutely,
that is something that I took part of one of the workshops during lockdown, the Pachamama Alliance that you were running. And then I was researching the project Drawdown and everything. And I think that it's a very comprehensive study and analysis of the situation. But as well, I think that the climate the climate change conversation, it's a very intense and polarized one, and a lot of people with a lot of negative thoughts, thinking, we're doomed and this is all in the wrong direction. And as well, there's people like me that I think, well, we've been doing things the wrong way. Now we have the chance to change that, and the solutions are already out there.
They certainly are, absolutely. So, Drawdown is a collection of 100 solutions that are already here. We've got them all already, and that's the beauty of it. And the other beauty is that by doing them, we save, off the top of my head, I think it's like $96 trillion by implementing them all over the next 30 years. It's another no-brainer in my mind. But it's just a matter of getting down to and doing these things. I mean, there's things that everybody knows about, like wind farms and composting. We've all heard of these things. And then there's a lot of really different things as well, like silvopasture and lots of different ways of farming. Farming is really key to our future and how we farm. But what's wonderful is that there's something there for everybody, because there's these 100 solutions, and within those 100 solutions, there are so many different things that we could do. So the Getting Into Action series that we've just finished, we had a fantastic group of 19 people go through it. And the most popular of the 100 solutions by far was food waste, because food waste is horrific. I mean, we waste a third of what we produce. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. We're crazy as humans. What other animal would do that? So that was the most popular solution, but the projects that are coming out that people are looking to do are very diverse, because there's so many different things that you can do within that one solution. And I think that's what's really exciting. And also what the series encourages you is not to just think, okay, what can I go and do? But to look at what other people are doing, because quite often there's already a lot going on. There is so much going on out there, which is really exciting and gives me lots of optimism. And you can go and join in. Everybody wants more volunteers and help. So
yes, definitely. And we talked in a few episodes back with Michael and Garvey from Footprint about the amount of food waste. And it is, as you say, it's crazy that we do that. And also it's crazy the fact that not only we do that, the amount of resources that are used to do that, and energy and water, but also the fact that there's so many people in the world that actually go without food, where we actually have it.
Yeah, it's breathtakingly, it's so sad. Yeah. Yes, we've lost our way a bit, I think.
Yeah,
and I hope that we can find our way back to a better place.
Yes, that's the idea. And I'm interested, Karen, if you can mention, you said before that you had, from the first time that you did a Pachamama Alliance course up until last year, you basically did other things. Can you share a little bit after UBI, after starting with UBI, what did you do? Because you've been involved in a lot of projects.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest projects was bringing 2 children into the world. So that's taken up quite a bit of the last 10 years. Which my husband and I thought long and hard about, actually, because, do we want to bring children into this world, really not knowing what the future was? But in the end, we decided we would, but they wouldn't get a choice in it. They'd have to be little eco warriors. And that I would dedicate myself to making a world that was great for them and all children to live in, really. So while I was bringing them up, I started a local community organisation out here in the Waitakere Ranges called Love Titirangi, and we were focused on plastic waste. So we worked very hard to get rid of the plastic bags in the village, and then we were working on keep cups as well. So that was great for keeping my brain ticking over, and and keeping that community itch at bay. But when my youngest started school, I was full of energy to get into more. So Yeah, so one of the things I started doing, I did some voluntary work for an organisation called 350 Aotearoa, which is a climate action organisation. Again, it's a global organisation, and the New Zealand arm is fantastic. And yeah, I did some fundraising work for them, organising a fundraising dinner. And on the back of that, I'm actually on the board of 350 now. So it's fantastic to be involved. It's a really inspiring group of people, mostly run by volunteers, and yeah, they do some great work. And through that, I met Barry Coates, who was starting up then a charity called Mindful Money, which you may have heard of. And I said to Barry, oh, I love what you're doing with Mindful Money. That really is interesting. If you ever need any help, let me know. And yeah, a couple of months later, he got in touch and said, is that offer still there? And so I did some voluntary work actually for Mindful Money for a few months. And then when the organisation was looking to employ its first employees, there I was, right in the right place at the right time. So yeah, I'm now operations manager for Mindful Money, which I love. It's a fantastic role. So that takes up quite a bit of my time at the moment. So my role incorporates everything from the finance side and HR, managing the website, managing the data behind the website, which is enormous. So yeah, that's been taking up quite a lot of my time for the last year as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing work. And for those for those listening that don't know enough about what 350 actually does and Mindful Money, can you explain what both organizations actually do?
Yeah, well, 350 is very much in the business of climate action. So they believe in a safe climate and a better future. So it's about social justice as well, because social justice and climate action are so intertwined. We can't really have one without the other. So it's looking to build a just and prosperous and equitable world, really. And yeah, there's quite a lot of sort of activism that's involved, non-violent activism, I might add. And I wouldn't really describe myself as an activist as such. I'm not one to go and chain myself to the outside of a bank. But I did hear the phrase pro-activist, which I rather like. And I think that's what I'll describe myself as instead. So yeah, with 350, really, it's sort of using my organisational skills to support them where I can. Mindful Money, well, it's fairly New Zealand charity, and we aim to make money a force for good. It's that simple, and yet quite complicated behind the scenes. So yeah, basically we're building a movement of Kiwis to shift their money, their investments, away from pollution and exploitation towards sustainable investments and positive impact ultimately. So we've got a website where you can go and look at what your KiwiSaver fund is investing in. So there are almost 300 different KiwiSaver funds, would you believe? Most people don't realize that. So there's a huge amount of variety. And most people are investing in things that they probably would rather not be. And most people don't know. So we've just actually released yesterday the results of our latest annual survey on what the public think about ethical investment. And yeah, over 3/4 of the public expect their KiwiSaver or other investment funds to be invested ethically. But in reality, only about 10% of KiwiSaver funds are invested ethically. So yeah, there's a big disconnect, and we're trying to close that gap. And the biggest barriers to people making a change are lack of time and lack of objective information. So that's where the website comes in, because it's not just about going to see what's in your current KiwiSaver, but then you can do a lovely little questionnaire. Everybody loves a little quiz, don't they? And basically you put in what your values are. So what do you care about? What do you want to really avoid investing in? So, you know, for example, if it's climate change, I do not want to invest in fossil fuels. And also there's some questions around your risk profile because it's finance. And then that will come back and it will give you the most recommended funds for you. And then you can follow through on those. You can find out more about them. And then you can actually refer to one of those funds. So we don't provide funds ourselves. We are a conduit for people to move into a fund that fits their values, basically.
Yes, and that is so important for a couple of reasons. One is I do think that for a lot of people, and this is something that I actually talk a lot in some of our events with Conscious Action, is there are those of us that are money poor but time rich, and there's those that are money rich and time poor, and we need everyone actually to be able to get to do everything. And those that have money but don't have the time perhaps to go and search and understand really what the impact is of what they are doing every day, especially with money that is such a big force in the world. Like a lot of the things of our current world that it is now, it is run by money, and money is like at the top.
Everything, doesn't it? It underpins everything. Yeah. And I actually tried to look at my KiwiSaver probably about 5 years ago. I was with Westpac and I asked them, what am I actually investing in? And they sent me this list, which was pages long. And I was like, well, I don't know what all these companies are. How am I supposed to know what these investments are? I mean, there were a couple that stick out, you know what ExxonMobil are and everything. But so I mean, mindful money has been fantastic for me as well, because I could see exactly what was in my KiwiSaver and then move to one that was more ethical and aligned with my values. But it's a big job trying to figure it out, and it's a big job behind the scenes for us as well, I can tell you. So I mean, there's nearly 300 KiwiSaver funds and nearly 400 retail investment funds, and for each of those, well, some of them have hundreds of investments and some of those are funds. So there are funds within funds, and we have to analyze all of that and then match it against the companies within the different values or areas of concern that we track. So it's not just fossil fuels, there's human rights violations, there's animal testing, weapons, alcohol, pornography, tobacco, palm oil, and GMOs. So that's the 10 different areas that we track. So you can see exactly how much of your KiwiSaver is investing in each of those different areas. And people find it quite scary, actually. Wow, my funds are in that. And
I think that's the interesting thing about being able to showcase people actually, like, because a lot of people, I'm pretty sure that don't even realize that by having their money in that fund, they're actually supporting all of this. And it's an easy switch.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not our research, but there is analysis by Nordea, who is one of Scandinavia's largest financial services companies. And they showed that how making your investments ethical, so your savings and your pension, here are KiwiSavers, it could generate 27 times greater improvements in your personal carbon footprint than all those other things that we think about, like eating less meat and using public transport and reducing our water use and flying less. So money has real power. And I think we all realize that, but most people don't think of themselves as investors. But we all are. I mean, I don't have much in my KiwiSaver, I have to confess, but it all mounts up. If you take probably nearly 4 million people in New Zealand who've got a KiwiSaver, and you add that all up, it adds up to a lot. I mean, there's $60 billion invested in KiwiSaver, more than that now, actually. Yeah. So it's a lot of money. And money gives companies license to do what they do. So it's really important to vote with our money.
Yes, definitely. And the more that we also start becoming more aware of our own values and how we are acting, and in terms of this, the money, if we actually put money on more ethical and sustainable funds, that then all of the solutions that are already out there for climate change uh, and for climate justice and social justice, then actually they will have more money, more investment to be able to create actually the change. And I think that this is the power of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we want to see. And at the moment, the actual impact investment field in New Zealand is very small, but that's something that we're researching more at the moment, and that will be the next part of the website that we develop, which will be to show people how they can actually invest in all those impactful things where you can help create the change that we need to see.
Yes, and also I think that there's a mindset change in terms of, for some people investing, this idea that I think that now has proven not to be the case, that investing in more of the sustainable and ethical businesses or funds actually don't give you enough return, and that's not the case.
That is definitely not the case. No, the ethical funds are shown to produce as good as, if not better, returns, and they performed very well during the COVID downturn earlier this year. It was quite gratifying to see that, actually, that those funds are doing really well, because things like fossil fuels are taking a real tumble, and I think as more and more people wake up to what their investments are funding, then those areas will suffer more and more. I hope.
Yes, definitely. And I'm interested now, mentioning COVID. What has been your experience in terms of the people that you know and what you've been seeing with climate change, and actually like seeing how some people changed their ways? I saw a lot of people that through the lockdowns, like they started actually living a little bit different and questioning if, going back to normal was a good thing.
Yeah, well, I wonder sometimes whether I live in a little echo chamber, because I'm surrounded by people who believe a lot of what I believe in, and live quite sustainable lives anyway. I've definitely seen more people working from home, which is fantastic, because if we can take some traffic off the roads, that makes it easier for other people to get around that really need to. I'm not sure what other changes have really sustained. I hope that more of a community feel has sustained. I know we saw more of our neighbours at a distance during the lockdowns, and that was really fantastic, because normally we're always so busy that we don't really see each other very much. And yeah, that was really lovely to be able to do that connection. I think a lot of meetings have been moved to Zoom. And here we are on Zoom. And yeah, the travel's a big one, isn't it? I know when I've used the Future Fit carbon tracker to see what my carbon footprint is, and yeah, in most areas I'm so conscious of the way I live, I do okay, but it's all blown away by just taking one international flight every couple of years. So yeah, we were supposed to go to England this year, which I was kind of, obviously we really want to see everybody, family and old friends, but at the same time I was feeling really guilty about taking that flight. And who knows now when we'll be able to take it.
Yes, definitely. And I do think that, talking about like solutions and talking about this, my experience was that a lot of more people now are aware of that supporting local community, and the importance of that, because I think that, and I hope that we don't revert back to the ways that we were operating before all of this happened, because a lot of places in the world actually, one of the biggest solutions is living in community and being able to do things locally. And it's like that saying, like, act local, think global.
Yeah.
And I do think that is something that I started seeing more, but we need to keep it that way.
Yeah, it would be lovely if we can. Absolutely.
Yes.
But also, I think, I was just saying to someone last night that I think during the first lockdown, I felt like we were talking to more people abroad than we were in New Zealand, which was really strange. Yeah, my husband's family are now like they do like a family Zoom call every couple of weeks, which is fantastic, and that had never happened before. It took 14 years of us being here before some of them learned to use video conferencing. So yeah, that's been a real positive. So I think there are definitely some silver linings from this really challenging year.
Yes, and I think that a lot of it is that connection part.
Yeah.
However it was for different people, of course, with all of its challenges, it did bring some of our lives into the basics, and that connecting with each other, connecting with people, being kind, because not everyone has the same opportunities and the same circumstances, and being able to support others that don't have enough, like even I have. So being able to actually support that, and to be able to share, and to be able to reach as well more people, because more people are online and are listening and watching and doing things, which, I mean, that also brings another issue, but like, it's little by little.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm interested, Karen, if you can share a little bit, what do you think that now that we've had some of these changes, and now that there's some more people aware, because there's all of these documentaries that now are there, like David Attenborough's documentary, that are more mainstream and more people are seeing them. What do you think, or how do you think that the next few months are going to go in terms of this? Do you think that there's going to be like a more big shakeup, or it's still super unknown, everything?
I say it's super unknown, actually. I did see that the David Attenborough movie is the fifth most watched thing on Netflix in New Zealand at the moment, which I think that is absolutely fantastic. I love the reach of that incredible guy. Yeah, and I mean, I love that movie as well, because it's very similar to the sort of the Pachamama approach, in that it takes you into the depths of despair and then it brings you back up with solutions. I would have liked to have seen more solutions in the movie, actually. Yes. I saw it in the cinema, and I really wanted to stand up at the end and go, "What's everybody doing? Let's all share our solutions." Well, I might have been like frowned upon as the crazy woman. My sister made me sit down. But yeah, in terms of what's going to happen, is everybody starting to focus on Christmas and summer holidays now? I think, I hope, again, I just wonder if I'm just living this little echo chamber, but I feel like momentum is building in the awareness, at least, of the fact that we've got a problem, and that's the first step. And most people have just blinkered to the fact that there is a problem. And it's terrifying. It's really scary when you confront it. And I think one of the things that we battled this year is the mental health issues around COVID and the lockdowns. And one of the things that motivates me in my work is that I want to be able to give people hope and optimism for the future, because when you start to understand the enormity of the problem, it can be really overwhelming and really terrifying. So yeah, I think being able to provide people with hope and solutions is really key. So yeah, we're there. We're ready to help people once they're ready to engage, I think is the answer. There's lots of us out there doing this work and creating different organizations and ready for people to come and join in.
Yes, definitely. And I do think, what you just mentioned, it's such an important aspect. And this is why, for me, everything is so interconnected. I see the climate change and what it's called climate anxiety, especially on the younger generation, such a big thing. And of course, there is the actions that we can take externally that have to do with the way that we are consuming and the way that we are living our lives. But a lot of the work, and this is something that I am super passionate about, is actually being able to get people the inner resources to then deal with what is outside. Because this is, as you mentioned, during lockdown, for anyone that wasn't in a very good or ready position from a mental health perspective, isolation, it's not very good. And a lot of people, of course, living in households that didn't support them at all from that psychological side, even some situations that are even worse than that. But for most people, I think that this is going to be a huge part of the change, is being able to give everyone the understanding on how do we deal as people with all of this, and not just the external actions that we can take. And that's such an important aspect of that. And I'm actually super hopeful because, as you mentioned, a lot of these issues now are a little bit more visible out in the open. We can't deny them anymore, even though there's always going to be deniers of everything. But how we can start seeing that, then okay, now we can do something about it. Until the time that we say, acknowledge that we have an issue, nothing is going to change. And I find interesting what you mentioned about the cinema, because I watched the documentary and I thought the same, you know, like amazing documentary, not enough actions. And this is something that with Conscious Action for the last few years that we've been running documentary evenings, the entire reason why I've done those is because I want to have that conversation after watching. I want to see like, okay, now we learned all of this and these are all big things. What are you going to do now? What's the next step?
Yeah. Yeah, there were lots of next steps I wanted to tell people at the end of that Attenborough movie.
Yeah, and as you said, amazing documentary.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have that awareness of what are the things that they can do. So it's part of the work now of being able to, for some people, know that light switch turns on and it's like, oh, okay. And now they can go and they can search for different things that are out there. And saying that, I wanted to ask you, and I think that I know the answer, but what is one resource that people can go and search for?
Oh, well, let me think. Maybe Drawdown. I think we did talk about Project Drawdown, didn't we? But I don't think we actually described what Drawdown was, and that might be interesting to describe. I'm going to read it out so that I don't get it wrong. It's drawdown is the point at which levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stop climbing and start to decline. So, and thereby stopping catastrophic climate change. And so the whole essence around Project Drawdown is to do that as quickly, safely, and equitably as possible. Yeah, I mean, the research behind it is incredible. Hundreds of academics and policymakers have all come together, and it's all peer reviewed. It's what I love about each of the solutions is mapped out with how much it will cost, how much it will save, how much CO2 it will either draw down or stop us emitting. It's an incredible resource. I really recommend it. There's the website is drawdown.org, or there's a book as well, which is really good for just delving into here and there. I don't think you'd read it cover to cover in one sitting, but it might be a bit overwhelming, but it's it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a wonderful resource. And I do think as well that for a lot of people it will be really helpful to actually learn about that through some of the courses and actually interacting and not just with the data there.
Absolutely, because then you've got that community connection as well. So, and if you want to get into action, then there's people all around New Zealand who are doing wonderful things. So yeah, it's fantastic to find out about that and to build community around it as well.
Yes, definitely. And what is one tip that you could share with our listeners?
I guess it's around the same thing, really. Surround yourself by news about solutions, not about the problems. It's very easy to listen to the problems all the time. Yeah, that's the news for you, isn't it? But there are lots of solutions out there, and however it is you do it. And if you're listening to this, maybe you're into podcasts. Am I allowed to talk about my other favorite podcasts other than yours, Brian? Yeah. Yes. I love Mothers of Invention. I don't know if you've come across that. No. So it's the former president of Ireland, Mary Robinson, with her co-host is Maeve Higgins, who's an Irish comedian in New York, and the chemistry between them is fantastic. But that aside, they profile amazing women around the world doing incredible climate activism. So it's just really inspiring hearing what people are doing. Along the same lines is Outrage and Optimism, which is Christiana Figueres, who's a bit of a hero of mine as well. And she was the one who got the Paris Agreement over the line, and so it's her and a couple of her team members, and they're talking to people about solutions, and it's just really inspiring. And then the local one, How to Save the World, which is Waveney Ward's podcast, which I know you've had Waveney on the program before. It's fantastic because that keeps it local, so it gives you good local context as well, and also with a bit of humour, because it's really important to have fun while we're doing this. I think yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's the incredible thing. There's so much out there. And I think that this is so important because I think that there's a place for coming together and to be able to not be so spread out. But then, of course, we need to have a lot of different people doing things differently towards the same goal, because a lot of people are going to be resonating with the different people and the different projects. And as you said before, and I love that, pro-activist. Some people love going out and being activists and like Extinction Rebellion and being able to go there. Some are...
I admire them, but from the sidelines. I've been on the climate marches, but yeah, I'm not an Extinction Rebellion type of person.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that there's space for everything.
It really is. Yeah.
And then that gives everyone a way of acting in the way that they feel like they need to act.
Absolutely, because we've got to stay true to who we are. I think that's important.
Yes, definitely.
We've all got different skills.
Yes, and different ways of being and showing up in the world.
Exactly.
Yes. And on a personal level, what has been your latest small act of kindness?
Oh goodness. I picked up quite a lot of litter on my walk this morning with my friend Mary. Does that count?
Yes, for the environment, that is good.
Yeah, I can't bear to see litter. It's one of my big bugbears. So yeah, we walked and picked up. I think there's a verb for that, isn't there?
Yeah, I forgot, but there's this group of people that started like doing their
Plogging. Is it plogging? Is that right?
Could be.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yes.
Maybe you've then got to blog about the plastic that you've picked up or something. Yeah, there was a very alarming number of hairbands this morning on our walk. Don't know what people are doing.
Wow. That's so interesting. I still find so interesting. I organized a few like rubbish pickups at the beach and some cleanups and stuff like that. And I'm still a lot of times super aware that for a lot of people, they do that as a regular thing and they don't see the issue yet. And it's not a solution having us picking up the rubbish, but better at picking it up than allowing it to go into nature. So
absolutely, yeah.
And what is the one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew?
That we can turn this around. Yeah, that we can reverse global warming and with it sort out a lot of other big problems as well, like global poverty. And also that I think people think that, oh, if we do that though, I'm going to have to give up this and give up that, and that it's going to be a real big lifestyle change. But I really don't believe that it's a bad thing. I think people will find a lot of positives in the solutions that we need to see. Yeah, like that community connection. I think that's been lost and in a lot of places, and people really crave it. So that's one of the positives. Yeah.
Yes, amazing. Yes, and I think as you just said, like there is, and I'm super hopeful, and I know that like there's a lot to be done,
There is.
but it's possible. And as I shared with a lot of people, for me, having like having a lifestyle that I don't feel like I'm giving up on anything, but I'm living as low or zero waste as possible, like vegan, not driving or not doing a lot of things that I know that are positive for the world. I don't feel like I'm giving up things. I feel like I have more time, more space, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yes, definitely. And how can people follow you, find you, and the work that you're doing?
It's not really about following me, but okay. So firstly, mindful money. Make sure you know what you're investing in and your KiwiSaver. So go to the website, which is mindfulmoney.nz. Yeah, and reach out to us if you've got any questions, because we're there to help. And for the Pachamama Alliance stuff, we've got more introduction to drawdown workshops have just started actually. So yeah, you can go to the website and look at those. So that's connect.pachamama.org/Aotearoa. Maybe you can put that in the notes because that's a bit of a complicated one. Or you can, if you search for us on the internet, you'll find us. So it's Pachamama Alliance Aotearoa. Yeah, and 350 is 350.org.nz, and there's always room for more volunteers. It's an amazing community, so yes, come and join us.
Yes, wonderful. And thank you so much, Karen, for taking the time to be here, for all of the amazing work that you're doing, and to be able to share it with us here, and taking the time really from a busy schedule to be able to share a little bit of knowledge, and hopefully we have inspired some of our listeners to go and make some changes and see all of this as positives and be hopeful. So thank you once again for taking the time, and for everyone that is listening. If you learned something on this episode, we'd love to hear about it. We'd love to know if you went to Mindful Money website and checked your KiwiSaver, if you are going to check out Project Drawdown and do some of the courses. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Karen, once again, and we'll see you at the next episode. Bye.
Kakite.